to For the Love of Humanity podcast, season 2. This is my episode on the feminine flow. This is the partner episode for the balanced masculine. And this episode comes because currently I'm recording another set of guide sessions on the feminine aspect. And so I recorded initially the balanced masculine because I just started the guide sessions on balanced masculine. I was really excited about it. And I knew there would likely be, I think I mentioned it last episode, that there would likely be a secondary episode. Potentially, this could be part of a trilogy, which I'm a little more firm on now. These things sort of trickle in. And as I walk the path, I get a little more information, intuition, like a little like a drip feed from my from my creative self. Likely so I don't get overwhelmed because I do have a fairly robust creative flow. And I think that if it came in all at once, it has in moments, like it's come in like bursts and it feels a little bit overwhelming, like which one to implement. There's too many ideas, too many things I want to talk about. So I'm lucky that this one has been trickling in the way it has been. And I just finished recording all the guide sessions for the balanced masculine. And I thought, okay, likely it'll be 3 or so. It ended up being 6. I love each one of them. I love them and what came through. And it's so incredible because when I do something like this, my whole world starts to reflect back to me what I am bringing forth. And so it ends up being like a table of plenty. I have, an abundance to overflow. And so as I finished the masculine, the feminine started to trickle in, and I was, because it is a symbiotic relationship, right? That's something I discussed the whole time in the balanced masculine course. And if you're looking for it and can't see it anywhere, please DM me. But otherwise, it will be available for purchase, all 6 sessions. And so as I was creating this, um, continually reminding us of the symbiotic relationship, or being reminded, not just me reminding as, guiding, but also being guided this whole time. It's such a metaphor. It's such a holographic, multi-dimensional relationship, because as I'm teaching it, I'm being shown it. And as I'm being shown it, I'm being shown it through, my own intuition and my own partnership and my own relationship internally, and then also my relationship to my creative aspect or my higher self, or however you want to characterize it. So that was trickling in as I was, partway through and completing it. As I continued to talk about the symbiotic relationship, I kept being shown the feminine as well, because they are connected. There's not really, like, the deeper we go into it, we sort of get to see how they are interwoven and how they are actually one. And it's kind of funny to think that we ever saw them as separate. Once we start going down that path, it's really interesting. And then it's like, oh, so the veils sort of have us seeing them as separate, and yet they're really not. And what fun to see them as separate, because, and I used to vilify this, like, how dare people, think that colors are gender, and how dare people, make people feel bad for experiencing, traits of whatever the other gender has ascribed to it. And that's so ridiculous. And then, coming deeper into relationship with both of them, I'm like, well, how sophisticated this multi-layered approach and game to life, that we get to see deeper revelation. Like, this is what keeps us desiring. This is what keeps our attention. It's what keeps us, it's the, like, burlesque of life, where it reveals one item at a time. If you're committed to watching and focusing in on it, it will show you the grandest dance you've ever seen. And what unveils is, like, you at the end. And, like, I get it, it's cliche, we've heard these things. It's not necessarily just cliche. We've heard, like, the greatest mystics of our time, or the greatest, like, thinkers and poets, and Rumi, and, like, we hear that we are all part of this design, and we hear that the grand revealing is ourself to ourself, and we hear, and it's so romantic when it starts to happen. It's so beautiful, and we can thank, both aspects, but the divine feminine, for the tease out almost, but not, because it needs the divine masculine exploration and going searching and shedding a light and being roused out of his slumber to go explore and see the edges of the divine feminine that creates the full embodied experience, the full bodied experience, right? So, this feminine flow is the partner course, part of a trilogy likely, to the balanced masculine. And so this feminine flow, as I've said a lot of times, is symbiotic. This is like an undulating experience. If you go to my Instagram, I tried to create a graphic to show this, right? Like a triangle with the self at the top, the masculine to the left, the feminine to the right, and then the infinity of like the undulating interplay of energy back and forth, the handoff of this experience, right? And so if you go to my Instagram, you'll see that graphic, what I'm talking about. It's fairly rudimentary, but I try to um, give the impression that's coming into my mind to help explain this in a way that hopefully presents it with some imagery. So, because I find that when we start to deepen in this understanding, symbolism and symbology, and like this is probably why we're moving to a GIF meme culture, because a picture tells a thousand words, a symbol tells, you know, a thousand centuries. So, like, it's just a thousand centuries, whatever, centuries on centuries of information. And so if you want to go look that up, check out the symbol on my Instagram. And yeah, so as I said, the feminine flow, the masculine balance is sort of like, I see balance as like an active, it's active and passive, right? So the masculine, requires a certain amount of balance to allow space for the feminine to be revealed, to be seen to a degree. And as I say in these sessions, um, they're constantly interchanging. So just when we think one characteristic or quality is ascribed to one, we actually now see it revealed deeper in the other. So it's never static or stagnant in that they're always these qualities where the masculine only has these qualities and the feminine does not have these qualities. It's like they're handing off these qualities in an ever deeper nuanced aspect. So the feminine has masculine qualities within it, and the more you look at the feminine, you see the masculine qualities, but you see how the masculine qualities have their own feminine slant to those masculine qualities that in themselves then deeper have a feminine. It's the picture in the picture in the picture. It's the guy wearing the t-shirt, and on the t-shirt it's a picture of himself, which is the overall picture, and then in that picture is him with the t-shirt and the picture of the picture on the t-shirt. And like it's literally that, like, life sort of becomes that experience of unfolding depth of really this holographic, this archetypal sameness all the way down the line. And so what I want to say about the feminine is that she is the desired, which perks and piques the interest to the masculine desire. So she is what is desired because she is desire itself. She is the embodiment of desire, which the masculine, starts to desire and goes looking for and desires her and doesn't know that this is what he's desiring. He's desiring to see the essential, point of creation, to see the essential aspect of who he is. And so she is the wholeness. And so he would be in that wholeness. And it's like she is revealed as always being there. And once we stop and clear the space, or we stop at the clearing in the forest, it dawns on us. The ephemeral quality of this, the epiphany dawns on us that she has always been there. She is always there. She is it. She is the allness. And that is revealed to us through the seeking, the masculine seeking and exploring and hero's journey and, going into the enchanted forest. And then we start to realize that as a whole human being, a harmonized human being, we are the explorer and we are the explored. We are the enchanted forest and the one who walks through the enchanted forest seeking the experience of the forest. And so she is the aspect that represents the fullness. She is the found, in quotations, I've got air quotes. She's found. She is the and always. She's the chicken producing the egg that came from the chicken. Like she is the fullness. Right? That's what the feminine represents. And that's like the womb, the depths. She is known to herself, yet doesn't think in linear terms. Like a man is not the consciousness that we refer to man as, the light of understanding, the light of reason, the light of linear perspective, the conscious awareness. She is the moon, he is the sun. Like these are all metaphor, right? But they're also interchanging. They're also, once you think you've grasped them, they slip through your hands and they aren't that graspable. And so she herself she creates. She's not, necessarily completely conscious, and yet she is. And the masculine searches for her through his spark of desire, right? He tries to understand, explain, shed light on. He shows her radiance by being separate for a moment, by leaving her and being separate and going on this journey. He separates himself off enough to be a reflection. And in reflecting like structure, he reflects this perspective, this mirror, this image, or her own magnificence back to her. And in this, she sees from his eyes. She sees her aspects in focus, in corners, and she sees her glory through his perspective. So again, we're not talking about two separate beings here. We're talking in metaphor. A human fully sees itself through the searching, through the perspective of the self. Through the masculine self, it sees its beingness. And so we have both, so we can see and experience the fullness of who we are, right? The dissection, the implication of time and space is to hold back all that is so that we can see, sense, and experience the qualities otherwise unknown, the qualities that we wouldn't be able to see because the sheer vastness of all there is would flood in and the experience would take over, and we wouldn't get a glimpse, we wouldn't get a chance to see it. Like imagine like the way the depths of the allness is explained as black, because it's everything, it's allness, it's all colors mixed into one, but we need a certain visible spectrum to perceive it. We need to be able to hold at bay some of it. It's like if you wanted to see one section on the floor of the ocean, let's say, you'd have to hold back you'd have to dam up a section just to be able to see the bottom almost. And so it's like that for a moment. The masculine sections and cordons off and dissects and just holds up one little aspect so that we can see a part, a quality of the whole entire thing. So, as I said, the feminine is not self conscious in the sense that, she creates. She creates and she's not self conscious or concerned about what she's creating and whether it's valuable or not, whether it's good enough or not. This is an equality of the feminine. So, it's really interesting that in contemporary times, so many women feel inadequate. They don't get to touch that essential nature of the feminine quality of being in its own righteousness and being, and how it knows it bees is its reproduction, its creativity, it's creativity that's bestowed on something that bees so wholeheartedly that it has no other option than just to create and produce. And it's it's here, it's overflowing so much that it sends droplets. It's so much fullness that it creates more from its fullness. It exponentiates. And so when I explain these in conceptual ways, I don't want to get it twisted. Um, there's nothing that I'm saying that's, if somebody is unable to reproduce physically and have children, that does not take away from the feminine quality, because as I'm saying, the masculine equally holds the feminine quality, and the masculine does not reproduce children in the same sense that the feminine does. So it's not to say that on one level that's one experience. If you come to this earth in a female body and reproduce and have children, wonderful, you get to shed light on that particular experience of the feminine. And that doesn't take away from the fact that every single human being has an experience of the feminine, can experience the feminine principle in a particular way to them. And so it's beautiful to find it in our own unique way. That's what we realize we become. We realize that we're like a kaleidoscope, or we're the lens that filters through our unique experience of the masculine and feminine undulating together, and that creates a different combination. Or sometimes I like to characterize it like it creates a different hex color. Like everybody has their own hex code color, and that's a combination of all the different colors that they came here to embody this time around. And so our uniqueness is the combination of our own forces. And we see this in nature. Like nature is not self conscious. Perfection exists. An anomaly reveals the perfection in the entire process of being. Anomaly uh, reveals the perfection in adaptation, or the perfection in the intelligence of communication through pattern and pattern interruption. It is in the presentation of creation and anomaly where we get to witness the truth of reality. So um, when we see the experience of something that doesn't quite fit what we thought was the pattern, we see a pattern interruption, we see something different in the pattern, we start to realize that that wasn't necessarily an imperfection. It was there giving us information, the quality, the context. Um, and if we use our masculine lens to sort of put the pattern to witness the pattern and recognize the pattern, we can recognize the anomaly, we can recognize the pattern interruption, and we can recognize the perfection of the communication system that exists in nature to let us know when the pattern has been interrupted. So even when we think something is not behaving true to pattern, it presents an even broader perspective of the perfection of the whole intelligence in the system and the communication of it. And so it wouldn't be present if it weren't so. It wouldn't be present if it weren't present. So the fact that we see it, the fact that we notice it, the fact that our perception gets to take it in, again, just points back to the perfection of the system. And so for the moment, it is in a deviation from perfect form is that information, that communication, that it's actually communicating maybe evolution. It's actually communicating adaptation. It's actually communicating to us where a balance is required, necessary, or would be helpful to a situation. It's information for the masculine to perceive. Look, there's a structure here. And then there's I don't even want to say a maladaptation, but there's a deviation from the structure. What does that mean? What can we do about this? And is this something that we can include in the overall beauty because we see this as brilliant communication effort? Or do we see this as requiring some balance and a call to action on the masculine? We get to explore that. We get to look at the edges of what that relationship, that symbiotic relationship looks like in performity, in the human experience. So this 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 evolution, this adaptation, this perfection, communication, this elegant communication system, this is beautiful. This is beauty. And it reminds us of the benevolence of this intelligence, the creative design. Beauty is the feminine. Observing beauty is the gift of observation, the capability of beholding, right? The capability of even being able to do the action of beholding, even though that is a beingness. Beholding is the masculine, right? Feminine is being, masculine is holding. So beholding is the experience of witnessing the beauty, beholding the beauty. And so this active perception of beauty, of being, and we do this within one being. This isn't, you don't need to find an external masculine to do this. It's fun when we do that. It's fun, when we find an external person who's willing to mirror to us our masculine and feminine traits, or plug in the aspects, and okay, I'll play one aspect, you play another aspect. It's fun. It's part of why we came here to experience life with other humans. It's part of why we came to the sandbox. It's part of why we came to play the game. But know that it is always available within us. We always, if we're able to look and focus and let the revelatory quality come forward, we come to realize these aspects are always within us anyway. We are already whole. We came to the game whole. And the fun part is that, we forgot sometimes. And when we can remember the wholeness and play the game, nothing really feels like it can be fully taken away from us because we're already whole. And so we have all this, and when we pay attention and make space for the revelation of this, we get to experience deeper satisfaction, I would say. So the feminine can remind us of the perfection of what is in the present moment, what already exists, that wholeness. As I just said, we have this within us. And the feminine creates, and it shows us it's already there, it's already whole. It's not self-conscious. It's not concerned with the feeble depiction of it, because its grandness is in its beingness, but it enjoys a awareness of it. It can enjoy being beheld. It can enjoy being admired. It can enjoy being desired. So when we forget this, we are simply off on a journey. We are simply off on a journey and on our way back to remembering this. We are we are going on a vision quest or a hero's journey of remembering and finding our way back to this knowing. So to embody our feminine, we get to tap into what we see modeled in nature, organically unfolding, right? And what we see around us is flow and abundance. And like, right now, I think when we look in our cities, I think planning and development made it so that the majority of trees that we see are masculine or male trees. So they're not necessarily fruit bearing. But we can imagine what would happen if there was an equal amount of feminine trees, like fruit bearing trees, just in our city streets. Can we imagine what would happen, as they developed, as they bore fruit, and as it dropped? I mean, sure, there'd be, a bit of cleanup, but there would be an abundance of fruit coming from these trees. And it's, well, who would manage this? Well, who would deal with the cleanup? What if, you know, apple trees were lining the streets and they were overflowing onto the streets and cars were constantly running over apples and whatever? That's a tangent, but generally nature organically unfolding is in flow, is in abundance. It's in divine timing. It happens with seasons. There's nobody needing to manage that process, and actually interference has created an imbalance when we look at it. And so in nature there's an abundance of space. In the feminine, it's the vast womb. It's the place of nothing where something is created for the first time. We think of a baby being created. And feminine nature is magnetic. It magnetizes to it what it needs, the resources. Think about even just pollination and how incredible that is in a natural experience. My husband's a beekeeper, and when I get to reflect on that process and just, first of all, the queen in the hive, and then also, the flowers being pollinated and giving off an essence and attracting the bees to them, the pollinator insects to them. It's really a relationship that doesn't take efforting other than following desire. Nature follows its own desire to create and reproduce. And there is overflow and plenty unless there's interference. And so nature is like nourishing. It's presence. It's always present. It's in the present. It's beautiful. It's both being and becoming. And it's nourishing, it's holding, right? These are all feminine qualities when we think of the principle and the archetype. It's the vast space that's able to hold it all. It's the place that everything is perfect and nothing is left out and nothing is wrong and everything can be consumed and broken down into the soil and everything becomes food again to feed and nourish the next generation. And it can also be like the grandness of it all, of all of it. The feminine is associated with the black aspect, right? And the black is everything. It's all consuming. As I said earlier, it's all the colors. It's everything all at once. This is why the feminine is it's so interesting how it got so inverted, and it can get so inverted in the sense that the feminine is vast and grand. And you think about, Mother Nature and storms and floods and earthquakes and volcanoes and tsunamis and hurricanes and all of the big grand displays that nature can do to level anything man-made, to level anything structurally that was created that really isn't a part of nature. And even things that were a part of nature, mountains and, eventually water and wind can erode these natural elements that are structured. And we think about water and how powerful water is. I mean, we get our electricity from water, hydroelectricity. We have, you know, multiple uses for water and it's powerful. Windmills, like watermill, like what am I thinking? They're like a windmill, but it's water. It'll come to me later after I'm done. But in this feminine aspect is also the void, the deep, deep, deep allness that is so full that we can't really discern one thing from the other. So it becomes the darkest experience. We think about, a woman scorned and a woman who feels underappreciated and a woman who has given, 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 and now has an empty cup. We can think of a drought, a woman not giving, not being open, all of these aspects, they're wonderful metaphors to look at and to show us and communicate with us the state of affairs internally. And it's just incredible. And we have it all. It's not just the women who experience this, the people who identify as women. It's every human has these aspects and can tap into these aspects. Now, we might be programmed into feeling and perspectivizing and understanding and living out certain aspects of these, but we all have the full spectrum. We all have the experience of the allness, of the perfection of the allness. And so it's what aspects does our, masculine part, does our mind, does our programming, does our presentation of self in the external decide to showcase? Or what is it programmed to showcase? And so those are the wonderful aspects of understanding the dynamic between masculine and feminine, the symbiosis, and understanding the feminine flow. There's so many more aspects to the feminine flow that I want to talk about, but in an effort to keep these a little more concise and in an effort to, in a burlesque type way, draw you out and into other areas in your own exploration, your own sitting with this understanding and letting it reveal itself to you. Make some space, set some intention, create some space for it to reveal itself to you, and it will start to show up. And if you want to learn more about this, I have a feminine flow guide sessions coming out. And so far, now that I've gotten going with them, it looks like there's already 4. There's probably, I can't leave things uneven. There's probably going to be 6 because there was 6 in balanced masculine. So keep your eyes peeled. So if you're interested in learning a little more, watch out for my feminine flow guide sessions coming out. And I thank you for being here and listening and having an open mind to this information. This is just what I've gleaned from my personal experience, studies, layered with my intuition, with my own, journey through my edges and forests and mountains and caves. And I'm just so happy and delighted to share. And I really want to emphasize I share when the energy is most potent. I said this in my guide sessions for Balanced Masculine. I really like to come on when the energy is there, because when I speak about this, I hope you feel it. It's not just me saying words, it's me conveying a full package. Like, it's energy, it's words, it's thoughts, it's emotion, it's the tone of my voice. It comes through, and that's my intention. My desire is for you to fully feel the package that I am sending through this audio. And so sometimes you'll hear things in the background. Sometimes it's my dog. Sometimes she goes right to sleep listening to me talk, and other times she gets up and down, and sometimes there are people in my space. But if I waited for complete silence, sometimes the energy is not right then. So I really want to hop on and capture when the energy is right. So thank you for indulging this or enjoying this and not getting too distracted by what goes on in my space. And the more I can show up in the authenticity and the realness of where I live and where I'm at, the more I can show up and produce. And it's a gift, really, when I think about that. When I think about that, because my Capricorn sun with my Lilith conjunction really, really tries to peg me in with that perfectionism, and it's very enjoyable to to my Sagittarius moon to break the rules that my Capricorn sun seems to think is so important. And so to show up in my real, raw, and authenticity is really a gift. So thank you. In my feminine flow. So again, find me on Instagram. Listen to my other episodes if you're interested. And if you really like the sounds of this and you want to hear more about the feminine flow, look out for my guide sessions dropping soon. And the potential trilogy, I dropped a little hint. There's a little Easter egg in the episode of what it might be called. But anyway, much love. Thank you very much.